How are you so relaxed when Kevin's dropping a manifest today? Oh, Courtney, my favorite 10-year-old picture sender. She is not actually dropping a manifesto. That was an epic troll, and you actually got epically trolled. Yikes, bro. Yikes, bro. You got trolled. Sounds like you got trolled. You should rant about Twitter bans and Twitch, and Progressive makes it worse for you, so you gotta try. How have I not gotten on Joe Rogan yet? How many mutuals do we have, guys? So reading about that self-DX autism tweet was thinking, what if you found a bunch of TikTok videos prove your autism and then blame that all for your edutainment the past 2 years and anyone calls you out as being ableist? True. Bro. True. Actually. Good meme, dude.
Sup, Smug?
If you only had
Sup,
one
Gifted?
topic with Rogan, what would that topic be?
I was playing
Something
League.
related
I'll
to
probably end up playing League
anti-establishment
in a bit.
because that's what I'm
Like,
all on.
this
these
season's
days.
kind of dead.
It's all Destiny.
Season's about to
so I don't care
reset
about
in August. So, but what's up?
Fuck.
I know.
was up for like an
Gifted.
hour last night reading
Warzone's
that
always
fucking-
tempted to go back to, but you know,
Fucking
overall,
vaccine shit. It's
not-
coming back again. How is it
as
happening?
gratifying. And I'm not a solo player. I like playing.
There was
with
some study,
people,
there was
so.
some like bullshit study published a while ago that people are trying to
it's alright.
say
Kind of
proves
getting
that.
the same feeling as I got.
Oh, I think I
when,
already mentioned this earlier on stream.
when I was
always forget what I say
playing-
on stream. That proves that like the mRNA
What is
vaccine
it?
changes your DNA. So now there are people that think. I bet Laura believes this.
Okay, Smug.
That if you
Are
if
you
you've
gonna be on
gotten
all day, or are you
vaccinated,
just gonna be on
like
for a
you
little bit?
now you have like mutant DNA. It's like been changed forever by the vaccine. Oh, I have a talk like right now. Holy shit! Sorry. Oh my god. I'm a dumb fuck. Wait, do I have a talk
You're
right
gonna be
now?
on all day. Okay, roger that.
Sam, yeah.
I'll swap over actually right now, Smug, if you wanna.
Good call, chatter. Hello, hello? Wait. Hello, hello? Hey, can you hear me?
Smuggerino. Hey, you know what? Sometimes it just
Pure
works
as
out
woke
that way.
moralist. We'll see who cancels who.
Abominable.
You're a cucks.
All right, there we are.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep, gotcha, man.
Oh, hey, how's it going? Sorry, I'm so
It's
used to
fine. I
using
like it.
Discord.
I
Usually
mean,
people
personally, I
don't
like
know,
it, but the
How you doing?
this right
Can-
now is like
Can you
I basically
hear
pushed as far as I can for this
four of the
season.
most commonly
and,
spoken words in
now
the
I'm just
English
waiting for the
language
season
at
to
this
reset,
point?
the new fixes to happen, and then make some
Hear me.
harder pushes.
Because we all
for
get on
next
these
week-
calls
next
and
season.
we all
But
have to ask that question.
Oh yeah, true. I
And
guess
after that,
especially for
Dragonflight comes
university
out and
stuff, you
everything
guys
will
are
be
probably using
super
Zoom a lot
fun.
more now, huh?
gaming.
Oh my god. Yeah. Yeah. And I never.
Probably not
I,
Wrath.
I got
I
into
mean,
Jeff
it's
got me on
tempting.
Discord.
But if I did, I would basically only be playing with one of my like longest time friends. Like I think me and him have been playing on and off, been playing together. I'm 30 now, so for about 13, 14 years.
All right, just making sure. Sometimes people come on and they don't know that
Sorry,
they're.
but me and
being
him, that
broadcasted,
was
so I
our
just wanna
expansion.
make sure you didn't say
where
anything
we
crazy.
arenaed together all the
Yeah,
time.
Yeah.
And we did
Wait,
all
are
that,
you?
so.
So
Do you
we're,
have?
we're gonna go. You're gonna broadcast live here.
Oh, yep. So we're live now. Yeah. So don't.
All right,
No,
awesome, man.
No addresses or anything.
All right, so I will.
Yeah, I mean
and I'll
it's
watch
always
what I
tempting to
say.
go back, but
Well,
the difference now
I
is like
was
it's very
saying, but
meta
you're
based, and
But
I already
Yeah.
know the arena style.
Yeah.
the
Would you
arena,
like to introduce yourself?
community
So
is
everybody
very
knows who you are and what's
Warzone-esque.
going on?
Oh, I
Or
need
chat
you to have
about
at
it.
least
Yeah,
2,800
I teach,
proven
teach
linked
largest.
it's just like how it is
race,
for COD, where it's like link your
culture, and
fucking
ethnicity
tracker. And
class
it's like, okay,
in the
chill,
world,
like,
probably.
relax.
About 800 students
So,
every
but
semester.
unless you have,
And been doing it.
I had a
for
pretty decent tracker. I could
30
get on
years.
to most
30
tournaments, play
years,
with
3 decades
most
at Penn
people.
State
Obviously, the
University.
big wigs,
I'm in the
the big
sociology
names,
department.
the guys who have like
And,
4 or 5 KD,
For a hot
or
minute,
do it every
I was an
weekend.
adjunct in
They
the
might not be
African
willing to play with me,
American
but
Studies
that's just because
department.
I'm not
Taught a
known.
class on race inequalities for
But like generally,
about
I
12
was
years,
like
an upper division
I was in the
course.
top 1%. So
But this class that I teach is kind of half U.S. issues and half international issues.
Sure.
it's
So,
meta based 1 and
so we're
2.
kind
It's
of really all over the
definitely
place. And I'm very
like,
much a generalist.
who you know
so I
based, because like
know a little bit about
there's a
lot. I
chance
know
that you
just
can
enough
grab an
about things to
1800
get me into
player and
trouble
run
if
him
I
to
say too much.
23 or
Gotcha,
2400.
Because the
It's
experts
not
step
likely.
in. Kind of like you.
It's not very
actually,
likely at all.
right? Then the experts step in and they all say like, "Hey, you've overstepped. You're punching above your weight, so to speak."
Yeah.
So
Regardless of how
Hey
you
man,
feel
I
about
get
the
it.
book, because
Like, that's
I
why
know there's a
I'm-
lot of fair
I'm
criticism.
kind of just playing
but,
League and
I didn't
playing
realize there
WoW
was such a
on
huge
off-
divide
off time.
academically between like generalists and specialists until I read that Guns, Germs, and Steel book. I'm sure you've heard of it, yeah?
yeah,
Yeah, and
Yeah,
there are fair criticisms of it, but it was funny how much sometimes things would seem to come down to like if you don't have
right now I'm
specialties in
just
this
playing
area,
more
you just have no business talking about
League.
it. And
A
other
lot of
people
my
say, well,
guilds
generalists are
plays
good 'cause they
League.
can weave these narratives that everybody
but
can
there's, like,
understand,
times
and like it's
where
important to be able to
they're,
tell
like,
the whole
all,
story, and then people say, well, they always get
full
these details
pre-made,
wrong,
and
and it
it's like,
fundamentally
okay, now we
changes
have like
things.
3
and-
or 4 people that are
yeah,
just
those
watching
fights
and
are
playing
interesting,
solo on
yeah.
the side.
academics, we get lost. Listen, the only cred that we have, really, in a certain sense, the only
Like for Mythic Plus
degree now, I'm gonna
Dungeons,
be-
I'm
I'm
trying to
gonna
push
take a big critique
in the
here,
top
so
1%.
I'm going to take
So,
a
like,
big swing.
That's
Sure.
next
I'll do it
season. This
carefully.
season I pugged up to 3200,
Well,
which is I think
But a lot of us don't have
around,
a lot
like,
of
the
value,
6%,
right? The Earth,
top
if we
6%,
all went away,
which is not
the
bad,
Earth's-
but
there's
definitely a lot of
life's gonna
people where
keep
I'm like,
going,
okay, I
right?
could be
as
doing
opposed
better.
to, you know, like
both
people that
in
work
my
on
own
sewage
performance,
systems
but
and
also just like
electricians and this sort
if
of
I had a
thing,
set
right?
group,
people who
I would
really
be able to push further
can keep
because
things
we'd
functioning.
be
You know,
more
like
consistent.
when we hit
So
when it all breaks down,
we would know like how
nobody's
each
gonna
other
need the
play,
sociologist,
how aggressive
right, to
they
sit
are, but
around
like
and
doing
analyze
that
how
every
things go.
time,
So, but one of the
like
places
brand
where
new,
we
you
get
don't know the
credibility is
players.
having a lot of kind of pedantic
I'm not
information
rating,
about
so
very
that's why the
micro-
difference is like
very
my
small things.
I don't rate. I do
that
Mythic Plus
maybe,
rating.
you know, they
so,
matter
like,
in our
meaning
field,
like
which might mean to
rating.
like a half dozen other
But,
people in the world.
yeah, I just do
It could
Mythic
mean
Plus like
60,
high
it could
keys and
mean
try to do
160, but,
hierarchy dungeons,
so
giving me
something
higher
like
Mythic
that.
rating. And
I mean,
then
you know,
at the very end of the season,
Diamond
if you're
did
in the
was
top
come
1%
along
of your region,
in that book
you
and
get
offer
a
really
title. I
innovative,
think just a
very
title,
unique
and then
perspective
maybe
and kind of
an
tying
achievement
everything
with a
together.
mount. I don't
Yeah.
know if you get a mount,
And then
but-
what he does is gives lots of other people a place,
But
a new.
that's what I
starting
want
place.
to do.
Like, you know,
That's
it's
like
like
I love
it's like
Myth. I
cliff
love
diving,
Mythic
right? If you keep
Dungeons. Like, that
diving off
shit's
the
so
same
fun to
cliff,
me.
you're just gonna have the same experience. But what he did was say, "Hey, wait, check out all these other cliffs over here, and take a dive, take a jump, see what happens." And so, but you know, the people who have spent 30 years studying the minutia, right? That for them, like they didn't-
Retail rating.
and nobody
is
they
nothing like
weren't
classic.
on PBS,
The
right?
amount
They
of,
didn't
like,
have a best.
the difference with like
they, you know,
classic
they didn't have any of that.
is
and
there
so
was
then they
40
get their,
dumb fucks
you know, feathers all
to
ruffled
mess up
kind of
one
thing,
parse.
You know, so
It's kind
and
of
it was
funny because
mainly
I've seen there's like a
parse-based
parallel
or
debate
speed
almost.
runs,
They
right?
seem unrelated,
Well,
but I think they're very
in
similar.
retail,
for
it's
when
a lot
for a
more
while,
about,
people
like,
going into STEM fields,
we're gonna shove
especially computer-oriented
in
people.
a
You know, the idea is
7-minute
that, like,
encounter,
I don't need
an
an English
8-minute
class.
encounter.
I don't need to know how to write
We're gonna shove
stupid
about
papers or whatever. I just need to be able to do
12
my job really
mechanics
well.
at you,
And then I think
all
we
at
kind of
different
realize
time
as time goes on,
variables,
well, actually,
in different
being able to
combinations,
communicate
in
with your
different
boss or other
phases.
people is actually kind of
So,
important.
but
It's
while we're
okay
throwing all
to
those
be a
12
little bit
mechanics
more
at you at different
well-rounded. You're not
times,
just a cog
you're
in a
expected
machine
to
just
still
has to
parse,
program.
and it's
Like,
like
these other
that's just a
skills are
lot.
good.
That's to me, it's not fun.
But I feel like I would like to levy the same
because it
criticisms
almost
at
invites
academics.
you have to
one of
be
my
meta.
biggest frustrations
Like,
is
there's like,
you'll get
imagine
these
being a
people that will
non-meta
come out
player
and they'll be
and
like,
you're
you'll get
trying
like,
to weave,
maybe like
do
a
the mechanics, do
pop
all that, and it's
philosopher,
just like, okay,
like Sam Harris,
Yeah.
or maybe kind of like pop
I'd
psychology.
be open to doing
arguably for
some
Jordan
progression
Peterson,
rating,
I don't know if
but,
Ghostbusters is like pop psychology.
you know,
but
at a
you'll get
certain
these people
point, I
that
have the
will throw
same
their hat in the
frustration I
ring,
did in
who
classic,
have
where
these
it's
like
like,
ideas,
okay, I don't
and then
wanna
all
deal
of the
with
academics will come out to
fucking
criticize them. Well, this was wrong. That was
being
wrong.
stuck on a
Okay,
boss
well,
for years on
why don't you
end.
guys do anything to communicate these ideas? It's so frustrating that there were some ideas that were so pervasive for so long. are you familiar with the concept of race realism?
Yes.
Yeah. So that was one. And it's like, I don't like that I'm the guy that has to be out here debating it because, oh my God, these topics are unbelievably complicated, you know, and I'm trying to watch like 12-hour courses on Oh god, the guy
I've
with the
been
big hair.
playing
He teaches so
mostly
many good biology
norms.
courses.
Slowly getting back into.
And now I can't even remember his name. But
potentially
like I'll try to like
some-
watch through all this stuff, and there's so much information. It's like I wish that like the
Yeah.
people that
ranked,
actually
but I'm
study
not
this
doing that.
professionally
I'm like- my
would
win
come
percentage
out
is,
and
like,
like
I
make
think 0 and
statements on
3
this,
right
or
now in
give
ranked,
good
but
breakdowns or good reasoned
that is what it
arguments
is.
about why these things are happening or not happening, rather than just coming out and saying like, oh well, race realism
Two
is
of
wrong.
the two
It's
of
like,
them I did
okay,
decent on.
that argument
Yeah.
might have
One of
worked
them I
20 years
did
ago, but
absolutely
it's
shit
not.
on.
Sapolsky, is who I was thinking of. But that's not good
Yeah.
enough anymore.
Yeah.
Like you need to actually step into the ring instead of just getting mad that everybody else is doing it. You know.
Well, again, I think there are probably a lot of reasons for that.
I'm also at 80
Many of
on
the
bright
reasons
side,
are rooted in
so.
ego. We don't have a lot going on necessarily.
Every
right? I mean,
fucking
mostly nobody
game I've
in a
seen on
larger
this
society, people
chick,
aren't
she's
really
just like dumb.
knocking down our
busted.
doors to
Mhm.
get us to come talk to them. And so, a lot of times when someone makes a bit of a stir or so people pay attention, there's an article in the New York Times or something covering them and in kind of in a broad, more general way. People just naturally feel some kind of way about that.
Sure.
And I get it, right? But at the same time, I'm very much with you. I just feel like the older I get, by either by chance or
Yeah,
because
normally, I
really
think this
planned it
season.
this way, and I'm not
I don't even
really
know when this
sure
season
which one
ends,
it
to
is.
be honest.
But I feel like I've acquired a
I'll
bit of
probably
wisdom
only
along
play top
the
and
way, and
jungle.
that wisdom mostly
I
comes
don't
through
like doing multiple
comparing
shits.
and contrasting lots of different fields of study
I think
and
the
lots
top
of different information.
top
So if I'm
mains
reading
I'm
about
trying to do is
insects,
Fiora,
or I'm reading
Mord,
about human
or
beings, or I'm reading
Gangplank
about
and Shen.
like some of the stuff we're going to
It's like-
discover from the James Webb Telescope. I mean, it's all going into the same place. It's going into this big head here.
Oh, I
that's
think
gonna,
all of
gonna
them
get,
are pretty OP.
you know,
The only
knocked
thing right
around a
now
little
is I
bit,
don't
and
know how
I'll
to
have
play
better
Gangplank.
thoughts about the field
Like
that I
he's-
actually study.
He seems
So,
easy. Just hit your fucking
yeah,
shots.
so that's kind of cool.
Do your
At the same time, I have an interesting thing going on. By the way, am I talking
Undying
too
grasp
much?
type shit.
No,
Like you want?
But
You're good. Go.
All right.
This is
maybe
your.
it's
They listen to me
nice,
talk all the
simple.
time, so.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
I I've had this experience with Korea where I've become a person that a lot of folks in Korea are listening to.
yeah, I like them.
And I'll just kind of leave it at
but
that.
it's just a bit
but a
trickier.
lot of
I don't know the
folks,
timings on certain
and
levels with the decay
I'm a
time.
generalist, right?
So, like,
there are
knowing
specialists
when
about
to
Korea, and I
like
say this
pop
all the
the
time
second
to
one
Korean
and then
audiences.
have your
like,
first
listen,
one popped.
you know,
Is a little
there are
off for
certain
me. My
questions you
timing.
can't really ask me.
Also, the ranges.
Because there are specialists out there who've been studying Korea for 30 and 40 years. I mean, you got to ask them these kinds of questions. But what I do, I can give you a perspective on Korean culture.
Well, yeah,
that
because then you'll
comes
get
from
bullied 2v1
my
and
study and
support
my
won't do shit for you, and you're like,
of
oh,
cultures
sick.
all over the
This is
world and my
amazing.
travel, that I
Yeah.
spent time all over the world.
Mhm.
And so I can give you a perspective of what's going on right now in Korea from comparing what's happening in Nigeria or what happened with Bollywood in the 80s or
I don't even
or Latin America or the Middle East and this kind of thing. So I give you just enough, and I give you what I think are some really interesting ideas. But if you
Okay,
want me to go
so
too deep,
each
I
direction.
can't go there. That's not what I do.
I'm so
That's not my
confused on how her
specialty.
mechanics work.
So,
What-
but for me,
Well,
I own,
it's a normal.
I can
that's
own
why-
that.
hey,
you
if
know,
I'm gonna
it's
do it, I'm gonna
it's
do it
important
here.
to me.
What is the commentary that you're doing related to Korea that I guess
Like,
people
where,
are looking
where else am I gonna
to
do
you
it?
for?
Try to go to ARAM and find this bitch?
Well, like Hallyu and the Korean wave and really understanding the wave and the development, the sort of expansion or the expression of Korean culture all over the world that
Yeah, Cottonmouth.
started, really started probably very slowly about 40 years ago, but it really very much took off in the past 10 or 15 years. So K-pop, K-drama.
That's one thing I don't like.
K-film,
Well, the thing I
K-cuisine,
like about
everything.
WoW is,
Um,
if
and wow,
a key
Korea is
gets
just
fucking
blown
scuffed,
up. The Korean economy,
everyone just
Korean
leaves.
politics, Korean
and there's no
everything.
penalty. It's not like you can't queue for
phenomenal.
X amount of time.
So it starts with
like a
a
battleground,
band
or,
like
or even
BTS, which is
like a
arguably
battleground,
the
you'd
most
get deserter. But like for
popular,
here, you get fucking
performance artists
reported.
who have
Yeah,
ever
you get your account
existed
fucking
on
banned and
Earth,
shit.
right? And
This is very
like wow, nobody would predict that, but I was a guy that kind of 4.5 years ago, I made a statement about BTS that just kind of randomly got picked up and in Korea and kind of took off, and then I started talking more about Korea, although I've been studying Korea for 30 years, but not seriously. I'm a Latin Americanist by training, so.
Okay.
But that's my take on the I think
okay. I'm getting the rhythm. Of
I have
this.
some really interesting things to say in sort of a broad way, right? Comparing and contrasting.
this is
if
actually
you ask me
kind
to
of
go too
dumb
deep,
busted.
I can go
I can see
deep
why
as
she-
well, but I'm not going to go
the
deep in
clear
the
is
place
kind of
where you maybe
insane.
want me to go deep. I'll go deep somewhere else.
Mhm.
But that's where the uniqueness comes in. So
I
that's
see
like
why. It's
listening
really,
to you, right?
it's pretty nuts.
I was
actually.
listening to the debate
Your
you
kid's
did
kinda
on
fucking busted.
Ukraine,
Oh, okay.
and I thought, yeah, and I've been studying. I've been to Ukraine. I've been studying Russia since I was studying the Soviet Union in the early 1980s. I was going to be a Soviet scholar at one point, and I decided not to.
Mhm.
And so I was listening to what you were saying, and what you
This
were
seems
saying were
actually
s-
insane.
a few really.
Like I don't
ma- I mean,
understand
ma- there
how
were
they
many
fucking. I'm
interesting
wondering
things
what the
you said,
limit.
but you
It has
said
to have a
few
limit.
really,
Like
really innovative.
basically,
things
her
that I
fucking
said, like,
attack speed just
whoa,
basically
okay, that was
from level
cool right
one
there. And I don't
just starts
remember what
going
they were, but
absolutely
the point is,
disgustingly ham.
you're not a scholar of this, right? Like it's not what you do
Mm-hmm.
24/7. And so you came at this in such a really interesting way, and I thought, okay, that's the value. But you're also a thinker.
That's so
right?
stupid.
So
That's
you
actually just so
apply your
busted.
yeah. Well, you are. I mean, you're thoughtful, right? So you're able to kind of take an innovative approach to something. So,
Or
what
yours
if we
top,
thought
just
about it
got
like
top scuttle.
this,
I'm gonna go get
right?
bottom
And
scuttle.
and then you make a statement. And mind you, if you're an academic, you don't do that, right? You got to be really careful about that because you got about 100 other people watching you, going like, oh, "Okay, hang on, we're ready to assess
Mhm.
and give you an answer to that." Whereas you're in it, and I'm not. I'm going to use this word, but I mean it in the best of ways because I apply it to myself. You're in a way kind of naively saying like, what if we look at it like this, right? This is like the young, the young mind is very mature,
This is kinda
so it's
wild.
cool. That's the value I think of what you do.
Yeah,
That's
I
good.
definitely, obviously, being who I am, I would agree. The one thing that I wish that more people would recognize for other people that are like me. So these other kind of like I would, as critical as I am of like alternative media, I would classify myself as essentially being alternative media. I wish that people were more honest about the limitations of that. Like, so in some sense, what you're saying is correct. That like because of my naivety, I can come at problems in kind of like novel ways or new ways.
Yes.
Sometimes that's really cool, and it might make for like, oh wow, like an outsider saying this, and I would have never even thought to think about that like that before. But in other ways, it can be really stupid. Like, well, of course you're considering this because you don't know about this, or that. So I always try to be careful in that, like, well, this is like the limitations of my approach. Like, maybe I can present a new idea or whatever, but keep in mind that, like, without specialist knowledge, like, there might be reasons why, this is something that other people haven't considered. And I tend to err on the side of caution for that because it's a bit arrogant to assume that, like, and people will do this all the time. They can be like, oh, well, like, this macro econ problem could be fixed so easily. Why doesn't, like, a
Yeah,
central bank
exactly.
just do that? And it's like, man, people have been studying macro econ for 50 years and,
Yeah, man.
and don't
Yeah.
know any. So I try to avoid that because there's a huge level of arrogance that alternative people can pick up, especially if they happen to make 1 or 2 or 3 right predictions, but for all the wrong reasons, they can all of a sudden think that they're gods on earth. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's well, the beauty is, and I think you know this.
Oh,
Well,
this
clearly you
is-
do.
damn.
When you encounter someone who's brilliant, and and as you're listening to that person and saying, "Whoa, okay, this is brilliance right here," and I'm not going to reach that, so let me just acknowledge it, and then everything else that comes out of my mouth comes out with a sense of just humility, I guess, right? So I'll throw a few ideas out
Oh,
to talk
okay,
about
so that's
this
a
or
better
that or
weave
the
I
other
need to
thing,
do.
but I'm going to do it with a certain humility because the brilliance. When I was 24 years old, I submitted a paper for a conference on Marxism and religion, and it got accepted. And so I went. I was 24. I mean, oh my God, I'm just a little kid, right? And I wasn't born. I went to a working class high school, and I spent the entirety of my high school smoking weed, and
This is gonna get
I
real.
graduated.
I can just see
somewhere in
late
the
game,
80th
she becomes
percentile in my
undefeatable.
Class, no, hang on, the 20th, right? The
No,
lowest
Belveth.
part.
Belveth
And
or whatever.
the grades didn't matter,
whatever
but I
her
was a
name is.
reader. I was an avid reader. And then when I started college, I only applied to University of Toledo. I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, and I got in, and later realized they let everybody in.
Sure.
And after 2.5 years, I was still a freshman. And I finally one day just decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to be a student for the first time. So I was playing music. I was a rock and roller, and I stopped working, and I decided to be a serious student. I want to be a well. I had a lot of catching up to do, right? So this I was 20 years old. So now, mind you, I mean, the difference between a verb and a noun. I mean, like, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then, but I worked at it. I really, really worked, and I loved learning. And so, I was starting fresh. Well, fast forward 4 years, I'm sitting on a panel with none other than a young Cornell West, right? Now, mind you, so we're on this panel together, and I'm thinking, hey, I'm going into this conference as this 24-year-old thinking I'm big stuff, right? It wasn't a big conference, but still. And then, luckily, Cornell spoke before me, and I went, oh, okay. Oh, whoa. And this guy, he never even looked at his notes. I mean, he was just going, and he was probably early 30s at that point, right? Like, oh man, it was just such a humbling moment for me. And it was the first of many, actually, but luckily it happened right there. So then from then on, as a graduate student, all through the rest of my career, I always knew that I was really a nobody, and I was never going to reach where he is. And it was very helpful,
Gotcha.
You ever listen to him talk? You ever listen to, like, really take him when he's just going in 1,000 directions, Yeah, well, you listen to people
A bit.
like that,
He was actually at the event that I was just at a while ago in New York City. It was funny because he was backstage and he was very friendly to everybody that came off the stage. Like, you did a good job, really good job. He was like shaking like everybody's hand backstage. I remember that. I only remember because of his crazy hair, but yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he seemed like a friendly guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's good for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, good representation or good for?
Well, no. It's good. It's good to have folks who really are just, you have to be humble enough to know what your limitations are.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. Yeah.
You are. I really like. I've listened to you more. I mean, Jeff Hamill is the person who introduced me to you, and he's the one who took my live stream, as you know, and just took it out into the world, and now we're at over 70 million views everywhere in the world. But he just said, like, hey, you gotta listen to this guy, right? So I started listening to you, and you're very, you just have a nice way of just coming at things and approaching stuff, and I think it's really important.
Yeah, I try my best most of the time. So one of the, obviously this is like I don't know how, actually, have you ever done like shows like this where you go on and you chat about, I guess, like college stuff or like to random internet celeb kind of people, or is it pretty insular? Do you do like university stuff generally, or what?
No, I'm pretty much all over the place. I mean, I do a lot of work internationally, so
Gotcha.
Lots and lots of different things. I mean, I'm all over, right? I work with the police, I work with the military, I work here, I work there. I'm kind of like, doing a little bit of everything.
Well, I guess then, so you've probably talked about this before, but it's kind of come up a lot on my stream. It's always hard to get a feel on what is actually happening in schools because, like, obviously what I'd like is, like, show me a study that controls for a bunch of things and then compares this to that, and then we can see everything. But that's obviously it's really hard to do when it comes to like feelings of political expression on campus or how students feel about things, how professors feel about things. I guess like one of the big concerns I've had, and I see a lot of people having these
Why are
concerns,
they all
but I can sort of
there?
quantify it, and then I want your opinion.
You're
on it.
by yourself.
It kind of feels like when I was going to school way back in 2000, 2008.
That's a dead one.
So long ago. Not that long ago. But when I was going to school, at least even at that point, it kind of felt like, or the idea that I was sold, even at that time, was that college was the last place that you were supposed to go to be challenged. Like, this is going to be the place where you go, you're going to hear new ideas, some of them might make you uncomfortable, but that's part of the college experience. And this is really the last place you're going to ever have to explore those kinds of ideas, because once you get out in the world, it's not the job of like your workplace to challenge you ideologically, or, you don't want people on the street, confronting you over things you believe. This is like your last ditch effort for sanitization against crazy ideas or exposure to ideas.
Or unless you get Jehovah's Witnesses knocking at your door, then you have an opportunity to
Sure,
talk.
sure.
But
Yeah,
yes,
if you wanna
I agree with you.
break out my edgy high school atheism internet debate times, yeah,
Yep.
that would be the time to do it. But it feels like today the approach to schooling has kind of become markedly different, where you have a lot of these concepts from sociology that in and of themselves aren't bad. And in and of themselves, I think I would agree with most of them. We can get into specifics if you want. Things like the paradox of intolerance or safe spaces or whatever. Like, I don't think any of these ideas are bad on their own, but it feels like these have all kind of like come together in a way to create these like radically intolerant environments where there's kind of like a certain I sound like I sound like a crazy conservative when I say this, but like there's this type of like progressive orthodoxy that is like rigidly enforced from top to bottom, and it's very good at excising anything that doesn't seem to toe the line. Do you feel like that? Do you feel like that's like an accurate feeling that schools are kind of shifting in that direction, or do you think that's kind of an illusion created by just a few cherry-picked examples? Or I guess, what is your feeling on that?
Okay, you're good. You're good. I'm going dry.
Yeah, the answer is yes and no. Okay.
Zoe's missing. Though. I was always about
Okay, so to give you folks a sense of, let me say a little bit more about who I am, so people have this sense, right? So, I teach this class, 800 students from all over the world. It's about generally speaking, it's about 45% are white people, but all backgrounds, class backgrounds, religious backgrounds, etc. Right? I'm in the middle of the heat, right? I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years. I mean, there's nobody who's more in the center. It's a big state university, Penn State University, and I'm willing to push the boundaries of things. We had a television show we worked on. The title was "You Can't Say That," right? That won an Emmy Award, actually, the first episode, and so David Horowitz labeled me one of the 101 most dangerous professors in America some 15 years ago. Okay. And, Fox News takes me on, and Black Lives Matter at Penn State tries to cancel me. I mean, from all over the place, I'm going to get hit somehow. So I'm willing to really kind of push things and everything, right? That my job is to challenge everybody. You walk in my class, my job is to change your mind. Whatever you're thinking, I just want to change it somehow. You can decide how that is, but I want to shake you up, okay? Sure. I'm a registered libertarian, right? So, I mean, I studied Marxist sociology, but I stay a registered libertarian. I read libertarian stuff because sociology itself just is inclined to lean toward the left, because what we do is we try to understand all the invisible strings and factors and forces that shape our behavior. Yeah. And what we want to improve society. We want to make it better. And so therefore, when we identify what all those things are, then we say as sociologists, well, you got to change this, you got to change this, you got to change this. And then all these outcomes will happen, right? Well, when you change those things, that means you're going to impose some outside will which is going to come from the state or the government. You're going to impose that on populations of people, right? So that's like this sort of socialist bent to it. Well, this is what we do as sociologists, right? Like we have an obesity problem. One way to do it is stop allowing businesses to sell 64-ounce sodas, man. No one needs a 64-ounce soda. Sure. And so we study this and we see if we did that, we could lower the incidence of obesity. And so we say, okay, do that. Well, then we get the critique of being on the left and socialists and all this kind of stuff. We're imposing our will on everybody. Well, I'm trained to do that. And so what I do is say, man, I'm going to be neck deep in the libertarian literature to make sure that I balance myself out. I want to be right here. I want to be in the center. I want to challenge myself constantly, right? Okay, so that's the background for me. Look, first off, most people are sleeping through school, right? Sure. School is really not very interesting. And most classes, what do? We have trained legions of students for years and years and years, and it's getting probably more problematic, actually, to memorize facts and spit them back on exams and get grades and then be done and say that we're educated. And then we wipe the slate clean, we wipe our brains clean, and we go to the next exam, the next class, whatever it is, right? Well, increasingly, we've just organized schooling around that. It makes sense. It's rational. makes sense. Not everybody can have the high paying job. Not everybody can have this and have whatever it is that people want. We just need to have markers to know that who are we gonna let through the doorway. So it's a very rational way to do it, and that's how we run schooling. That's not true of all schooling, but across the board, I will say probably most classes at Penn State, when I ask students, and not just at Penn State, anywhere, we ask students like, hey, how are your classes? Oh, it's boring. Oh, really? Well, what's going on? The teacher just lectures at us, writes on the board. We take notes down. And then what do? Well, I, study them for an exam and and then move on. This kind of thing. I'm like, okay, where's the critical thinking happening? Well, I sit around with my friends. That's not true in every single class, but it's true in far, far too many. And it's true across the board at university, except a few select universities, right? Well, if that's the case, then what's it matter that we have a free speech zones or we have safe zones or we have, nobody pays attention. Like if I say like, hey, at Penn State, like here, there's certain safe zones on campus, right? Like 99.9% of the students at a place like Penn State have no idea what I'm talking about, where it is, what that means. They don't care. It doesn't matter to them. And it doesn't mean that therefore, because they're mean-spirited or therefore they're going to go out and start saying all these racist, sexist, homophobic things or whatever the case is, or they don't care about those issues. It just means that it doesn't matter what the institution does. For most people, they're just living their lives and moving on, and it's not really impacting them. And when we read that even some professor like me, I say something really radical in my class, and then it's picked up by Fox News, and Fox News is saying, oh, this professor trying to brainwash his students. Listen, man, 4 of the 800 students in my class even really heard me say it and understood the implications of that. The vast majority of students, they heard me say it and they're like, oh, yeah, okay, all right, yeah, all right, and they move on. So,
oh my God.
there is a move to kind of there's a move to kind of adopt certain agendas, and I'm not sure it's just the liberal agenda, but for the day-to-day experience of the average student, it doesn't oppress them in any way whatsoever. Doesn't impress them either, but it doesn't oppress them.
Okay, yeah. So it kind of sounds like it sounds like when I was in school, like most people are there to just kind of show up and hopefully pass the test, get the degree, and then get out, basically, yeah.
Yeah. And then hopefully and then if they're lucky, they're doing something like you're doing, right? Then they leave school and they start thinking in new ways.
If you're really lucky, yeah.
Jeez, they fucked you up, bot.
It's kind of funny.
That's my take on it.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I was gonna say it's kind of funny because like I see like now that I'm out of college, I had to quit because I was doing I was working too much. But like after getting out of college and then spending time in the real world, I guess there's always that saying that youth is wasted on the young because you don't realize like all the opportunities, everything available to you when you're young. Yeah. Now I see that like it feels like in colleges or in university in general, there's a lot of stuff to do and opportunities, and like going to class and just passing the test. That's like one of like maybe even the least important things that you can be doing on campus. There are like so many opportunities. There's frats, there's events, there's massive amounts of resources. You have libraries with subscriptions to things and everything. But it seems like for people that are like in school, you don't really think about any of that. You're just like, I need to go to school, pass the test, and then get out. And then looking back at it retrospectively, like, man, what a waste of time. Fuck, there's so much cool stuff you can do in college.
They're
like, why would you just worry about this? Yeah.
No,
I mean, I understand it, of course, for the people there and everything, but yeah.
Should be able to.
Yeah, sure. Imagine what you would do if right now someone said, hey, listen, you can't do anything for the next 4 years. You can't do any of your work for the next 4 years. All you can do is you got to hang out at this college campus.
I think if you would have
where you have a massive library, you have all these resources, and you got to be there for 4 years.
At least just her.
Imagine
we would have died
how exciting.
I think you would have been able to.
You know what I mean? To not be interrupted by all.
Yeah, and then to be able to just like explore other things on campus, talk to other students. Like there's if you could go back. I don't know if I read a short story once where it was just an extended joke or whatever, but the idea of like aging in reverse would be so much fun because you'd be so much more equipped with the wisdom to take advantage of like all the opportunities.
Dude, it sucks. This fucking
rather than like the really stupid way. And again, no offense.
This active is only good if I kill someone.
The value of like what you could get out of college.
It's pointless otherwise.
But It sucks because it's
Yeah.
always like I think I find pretty ubiquitously throughout everybody I talk to that's aged, 25 or 30 and over, like, what's the one piece of advice you try harder in high school, try harder in college, like, make sure that you're doing more than just like going to, like, make sure you're not skipping class. Like, it's always like, I've never found somebody who's like, you know what, I wish I would have studied a little bit less, or I wish I would have done a little bit less in college, I wish I would have just partied more. Like, I'm sure those people are out there, but generally the overwhelming amount is like, take advantage of like what you have as a kid, even through 18, 24, because you have no idea, when you have to wake up and work every single day, how much life changes.
Yeah, well, and the problem is when that message is coming from parents, there's also a subtext to it, which is that, but make sure you get a job so I don't have to take care of you for the rest
Yeah,
of your
true.
life.
Yeah.
Whereas me, I don't have kids. I just have my students.
Jesus, bro.
and
Hey,
sort
we
of-
just
and-
stop.
and folks
Everyone's
in my
they
focus,
hard
take a
rotated
year off,
over
you don't
so
have student
fast,
loans
dude.
and you have
Jesus
time, take a year
fuck.
off or take a gap year or do whatever it takes. Whatever you can do. Oh my gosh. But yeah, it's we live in a college town here. I mean, it's a big college town, but we have a lot of retirement communities. And man, what an awesome thing that is. Hey, by the
I
way,
said
George
no.
Carlin has a really funny shtick where he like says, "Wouldn't it be interesting if life actually happened backwards?" And he walks us through.
I'm almost positive that's what I was thinking of when I was referring to that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah,
Yeah, it's very funny.
yeah.
But by the way, I don't mean to
Just getting
say
ass
that
busted
I mean,
right now, dude.
there is a sense in which universities have sort of organized ideologically around kind of a social justice kind of paradigm, right? And which I think, okay, that it makes sense, right? I mean, I see that. What's the alternative, right? I mean, but the problem is when social justice only starts to
They're
get
just, like,
defined in
worded
one
out.
particular way, and it means
There's
one
like nothing
particular
we can
thing,
do because they've literally
as
had it in my
opposed
whole.
to
Yep, they're gonna
lots of
try and
other
take my
things. So like
job.
one thing I do in my class is, I mean, I really push the envelope on this kind
I
of
think
thing,
so.
right? Like
There's gonna be a little
I
break right
bring,
now.
last semester I brought 3 students who identified. One was African, one was Afro-Caribbean, one was African American, to the front of the class, and we just talked about their experience and what oppression means and what this means and that means, and power and privilege and supremacy and all that kind of stuff. Well, but so then we started talking about Haiti.
You
what it
definitely
means
need
to have
red.
an American
I know,
passport.
I didn't
to be
realize
able to
fucking
travel here to
she
the
is
US, to
Malay.
live here in the U.S. and cell phones, right? And all the slavery that exists in cell phones. I'm asking, hey, give me your cell phone. And I
you're
said,
good.
do you know how much slave labor is in this cell phone? He's like, no, I don't. I'm like, well, why not? Like, how do you not know that? How do you have a cell phone? What would
want
and
red?
this was the African American student. Like,
'Cause
what
they're
would your
definitely hunt
ancestors
for
say? That all you got to do is plug in slavery and iPhone, and you'll have 10 videos will pop up about all the slavery that's right in this phone, and you don't even take the time to do that. Like, come on, man. Like, what is that? And so, what we don't have is enough challenges to everybody on those kinds of terms.
I didn't
because
realize
there are
this
very
bitch was
few
Malay.
people like myself. I can do that, and I
It's
can
like
do it.
she-
With
she
5
builds like an
cameras in the
ADC.
room
She
and
is definitely
streaming
not
on
an
YouTube
ADC.
all over the world, right?
100%
But most
just
people
pure Malay.
would be very reticent to do that because we've created a kind of culture that makes it difficult for people to
She is
challenge
13 and
the people who have been identified as being and
Jesus, bro, this fucking
certain groups of
guy's,
people, let's
Sure.
say.
actually
We can-
so fucking
Woke is
dangerous.
kind of feels very conservative to use the term, but yeah, it definitely feels like there's a there's like a certain way of viewing the world and all of our problems, and the challenge of that is very.
She's literally
it
just
seems like it's
talking.
getting harder and harder to bring up on
Just
college
telling us.
campuses. Do you ever feel like
Well,
you? Or go ahead, yeah.
No, it is, but only for people who themselves aren't schooled in things, right? Like, there's nothing I can't talk about because, like, I can do that. I mean, here I am. I've got 3 black students in the front of my class, and I'm saying, look, man, what the hell? What are you doing? Like, what would you say to your great-great-great-grandfather about the fact that you own a product made by
Dude, what the
slaves
fuck?
that has slave labor in it, and you don't even
Does she have like the
you
max
don't
cooldown
care
reduction
even
too?
to look into that, and you don't even want to know because the one
She
student
has
was saying,
40%.
well, I
cooldown
kind of
reduction.
heard about
Jesus
that.
fucking
I'm like,
hell.
you heard about that?
Yeah.
Like, and you didn't investigate it, and you still own your phone? Like, this is come on. And so me, I'm pushing. 'cause
Oh, you
that's
should
my
go.
job
No,
is
go
to
up.
push.
Kaiser's up
And
here.
my
Low
job
as
is to
fuck.
make every single student in that class at some
low as
point
fuck right here.
uncomfortable with whatever position they hold,
Mm-hmm.
and to push them out of that. And you know what? And what we don't get, and this is what we don't get on the right.
At this point.
People like who are on the right and conservatives, you know, the Tuckers of the world and so on, they feel like these students don't want to be
Bro.
challenged, and they do, man. Those
So
three
I can
students
understand-
are like,
okay,
"Oh my
now
God,
I
that was
understand her
amazing.
kit
I
a
feel
bit more,
smarter
so
as a result of you pushing
She
me in
is
the
so
way that you
fuck.
just
I don't
did."
understand how everyone else
But,
was. Maybe she
you
just had
know.
like support players the last game.
Do
A
you-
lot of people just
because
are
like she was
uncomfortable.
just so unkillable.
Do you feel like
I think it's. I think
so
her
I'm
E's
curious
like a
because the
fucking
story has been told
a
time and
E's
time and time
W,
again.
but it does
since
damage.
The number of professors are mounting where they try to do something similar
probably where
to
it's
what
at.
you're bringing up, and they
Yeah.
end up getting pushback
Velvet.
that's so severe that they end up, if not
Yeah,
like
so I was-
completely
that's
ousted
what I
from
was
their
figuring
position,
out
or they're
that
forced to
game.
resign.
Like,
or
I can
they
see
get,
why
like,
she's
shunned.
OP,
Yeah. Do you
but-
why do you
yeah,
think in
it was a
your
bit
particular
tricky.
like department or your university, why don't you ever worry about this, or do you worry about this? Do you think it's coming for you eventually, or yeah, what are your feelings on that?
No, it's not coming. There's a few students, you know, we had this move after. I've had times when, you know, folks on the right or on the left or whatever have tried to so-called cancel me, or just called me out on social media on certain things, but mostly people don't, because most people who do have never been in my class. If you're in my class, you see what's going on and you trust me, right?
Mhm.
Because
Velvet.
I get what's happening. I've dedicated
very
my life to this,
interesting.
40 years of studying these kinds of issues, right? I've lived
I just feel like
around the world, and you know,
I don't
mean,
know
I've
what
been-
finesse
you
you
know,
have to have to play her, but geez, I don't have it.
I had the
don't have that finesse.
experience. I know how to talk about things,
Mhm.
right? And it's like deep in me. Like I know how to talk about just like hair, for example. You know, we have a couple classes on you know, up on YouTube, just all about hair. Well, I know how to talk about hair.
Seems more
I know a lot
tanky.
about hair. I'm like you.
I
right?
like
I'm
fiddle.
going to learn
Fiddle's my
about
shit
hair.
right
I'm going to
now
go
in
out on my
general.
own. You went out and learned about Ukraine. You didn't study that your whole life. That's a new war. You said like, I mean, you've been studying geopolitical issues
Because like
the way
his
I've listened
early's
to you talk about
absolute dog
things, I'm
shit, but like
okay,
his
this guy's
mid
been
is
thinking
so
about this
fucking
for a
hype.
long time. But there's
The second he gets
specifics about
6, it's
things
like
you gotta
okay,
go out and
the
you gotta
game
learn
can
a little
shift
bit.
even
Well,
if he's
that's what I
down
did.
0-3.
And so like I can talk about this
But
stuff.
like, if
and
he's
I know
just
how to
even,
talk about it. I'm not going to put my foot in my mouth
most of the time he's gonna be
Gotcha.
down.
because
but
I'm good at it. And a lot of people aren't. They're just like, it's like nails on a chalkboard. It's like, oh God, when you say that, like,
Mhm.
you're just a white man or you're just whatever. It's like, oh Jesus.
Have
Yeah.
you?
Even no, go ahead. Yeah, so go ahead.
No, go
I
ahead.
gonna
Because
do
I was going
that.
to ask kind of something related to that last thing that you just said.
Well, like for example, you know, most recently with trans issues and non-binary issues, right? Like, so for me, for 30 years I've been talking about binaries, and like, what is this? Most of us are bi. I mean, you know, like it's hard to be 100% straight or 100% queer, or not queer. That's the word. 100% homosexual
Sure.
or heterosexual,
Yeah,
right? It's
you've got like the
hard to
McKinsey
be.
scale, and people say that we all kind of
Yeah,
exist
but
on it,
like,
yeah.
come on, man. All you got to be is in the right moment or meet the right person, and you can be like, oh, okay, hang on, I can feel a something in here, right? So so we're in there. So I've been like in the non-binary for years, right, and loving it. Well, for me, it's like about time people start using they and them. This is good, right? I've been thinking this for years and saying this for years, but yet when I have a student who in front of class, let's say, who wants to be referred to as they or them, and in my class I just keep tripping over it, right? Because I've been speaking the English language for 61 years.
Sure.
It's like, damn, there I did it again. Like, and you know, like a couple students come up and I say, listen, I'm going to trip over this because you present as he or you present as she, and I'm going to trip over it. You know that. And then I trip over it and I'm like, see, there, I turn my mic off. I'm like, hey, there, I just did it. But okay, whatever. But then I say it to the class, and the class has a trust in me that, like, okay, no, this guy really isn't, because I got stories. I can tell you, 31 years ago, 32 years ago, when I counseled my very first student who was transitioning from he to she, from M to F, right?
Mhm.
And I'm like, this isn't like, don't think you're calling me out, y'all, right? I've been in this a long time, right? And so I've been cool with this for a long, long, long time. But yet I'm tripping over it. And yet I look at some other person and like they're not tripping over it. I'm like, ah, God,
Mhm.
okay. But
Damn it, I was
but
hyped for
there
that
has to be
matchup.
a trust. Like, yeah, this Sam knucklehead.